Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Review. I'm Phil Hargis alongside of Robbie Castro. Robbie, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Phil, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, NFL Week 1 is finally here.
Can't wait. Let's get right into it.
The drafts are just about all done. I got one more. I'm doing a WCOF satellite here later tonight. After I get out of here, believe it or not, down to the last second, and then I'm immediately off to Boston for the Bengals-Patriots game. I can't wait to get up there. It's going to be a great trip. And you'll be manning things back here at the fort for the Redskins. Cowboys games, no doubt about that. But all of our drafts are done. We've gotten all of our players. And we've got all of our great teams, and we have all these guys that we're relying on really heavily this year to carry us through Week 16 and win us the Fantasy Sports Championships this year. So that's very important to us. But what happens if you have a guy that is devastated in the first week or two of the season because of a catastrophic injury like Tom Brady a couple years ago? Robbie, what do you do? Your season's kind of lost at that point.
You're devastated. You better have a good backup quarterback, which I didn't plan on drafting a backup quarterback in one of my leagues. So
yeah, that's what happens. You don't have a backup plan at all. But however, I just found out about this exciting new product that you guys can get out there that I just found out about it. You can actually insure your top tier players from getting injured and being gone for the season. You can insure all the money you invest in your teams. You can recoup it if you buy the appropriate insurance policy. We have got an exciting new guy to bring onto the show to you. His name is Henry Olszewski, and he's joining us from New York live via Skype. Henry, thank you very much for being with us here on the show. How are you doing tonight, man?
I am well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So you sell insurance for fantasy football players. What's that all about, man? This is great.
Well, it is very much along the lines of what you discussed about losing Tom Brady, in '98, and having that, not having a backup and investing all this time and money in your draft, and then you're out. You don't have a backup plan. All the quarterbacks or your running backs are chosen, your receivers are chosen. You get some unproven third string guy that you may have to pick up, and he may be totally useless to you. And then what do you do?
So that's great, man. So you can buy insurance for these guys. I mean, So tell us a little about the company you formed here. It's called FantasySportsInsurance.com, and how you got started with that. You do it for football, you do it for other fantasy sports, it sounds like. Just tell us a little bit about your exciting new company here, would you?
Sure. Well, we started, the idea launched in '98 when,
2008.
when Brady went down, and I had just gotten into insurance a couple of years prior to that, and I was looking for something new and exciting to do. And when that happened, I had him, ironically enough, on my team, and started talking to a few friends about it. And they were, as your fantasy sport buddies do, they razz you and they give you a hard time because they know that you're going to end up in the tank and finish last in the league because you lost a key player like that.
There's nothing you can do.
So I started to talk to the principal owner of the agency, and I said, how different is this than real disability insurance that, professional team owners buy? And, we did a little research, contacted a couple of our underwriters, and, the initial reaction was, you guys are, you're way off the mark because, insurance is very conservative. But, we did find a company that would entertain the idea, and fantasy insurance was born. We found Lloyd's of London to underwrite it, and we started building a website and, coming up with the product, doing some research about the industry of fantasy sports business. And, we launched it last fall, and it's here again for another season.
So does Lloyd's do the actuarial calculations on that with the probabilities of injuries? Is that something that you've sort of derived a formula of yourselves and your partners and your business partners or everything? I mean, is there a method to your madness, if you will, that you can tell us about, or is that top secret proprietary information there?
No. There's the method is, I started to do some research myself because, I played fantasy sports, but I wasn't, very familiar with the actual business side of fantasy sports. So, we came up with the initial concept, and then I started doing some research. I went back about 4 or 5 years and started looking at injury reports and seeing, how many, I did the preseason rankings, top 25, top 50, and I took a look to see how many of those players actually were injured a significant amount throughout the seasons. Some years you had only a handful, and other years it was catastrophic. Out of the top 50, you may have had 15, 20% of the guys that were out a significant number of games. So at that point, I reached out to the company that we use, who is Houston Casualty out of Boston, and they are the actuarials, if you will. They run the numbers, they take a look at the analysis, and then they go to Lloyd's with that information to get the policy underwritten.
Sounds good, Henry. This is Rob Castro. How much coverage, say if I had a guy like Phillip Rivers and Maurice Jones-Drew, and I wanted to cover or insure both these players, how would I go about doing that, and what is the cost that would cost? How much would it cost me to insure these two players?
It's pretty simple. You just go to the site, tell us how much you spent, how much you want to insure the players for, and we give you a policy. Now, a lot of people ask, does it cost more for a Phillip Rivers, Jones-Drew, and Adrian Peterson, or does it cost more for a guy like Tom Brady who had the major knee injury, or Wes Welker? And I'm a Patriots fan, if you can't tell. But what we did was, instead of trying to differentiate the rates per player, what we did was we took the top 100 preseason ranked players, and we vetted them as eligible or not eligible, and then we put a rate on the insurance.
Okay, so they're kind of aggregated. This, in insurance terms, this would be like kind of pooling your risk. So these guys are all covered within the same pool, so that risk is spread out across the entire group.
Absolutely.
Essentially. So if you do have a guy that we think is more injury prone, and just looking at your list of players here, I don't know who I would grab right off the bat. Maybe a Carson Palmer. Or how about Donovan McNabb would be a good example. If you had McNabb, you'd probably be more inclined to insure him as somebody perhaps like Peyton Manning, who misses almost no games, I would say.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I had somebody call me today, and I had an interview with Darren Rovell on CNBC, and he brought up the question: would you insure? Is Brett Favre available for insurance? And my answer was no. The underwriters said he's older, he's got a lot of these ailing injuries, but ironically enough, the guy has the streak for the most games played. So
that's true.
Would you insure him? You probably wouldn't, because he's going to play every single game he's available for. But an insurance company is not really interested in insuring a guy of his age in a league of 20-something-year-olds. So
yeah, because the insurance companies are all about the probabilities and the numbers and everything. I got a college degree in actuarial math, so I know something about this. You don't run into those every day, do you? But yeah, so I know something about the probabilities and the casualty tables and everything like that, mortality tables and things like that. So yeah, I mean the probabilities are against him that just like Cal Ripken, sooner or later you're going to miss a game because you're getting older and more injury prone.
Absolutely.
So everybody thinks that Favre is going to be done at some point this season, but. It's interesting. I mean, Robbie, you see the list here. You can insure basically you can almost insure your entire team, because you're drafting almost for your starters in the first 6 rounds. You're going to have guys on the top 100 players.
Right. Well, you always have the prep for injuries as well too. Meaning you have to have great backups and good depth on your team to win championships. And as we all know, a running back's more inclined to get injured over a wide receiver or a tight end. Yeah. So Henry, how do you view like a guy, especially like a rookie? Say like a CJ Spiller or a Javid Best. How would you insure like that guy as opposed to like I don't know, let's say like a Brandon Jacobs of the New York Giants?
That's what he's saying. They're all. Correct me if I'm wrong here. They're all the same, though, right? I mean, if you insure that, the rookie costs the same amount as the 10-year veteran.
But also, I mean, you're more inclined to get injured too. But how would you go about say we talked about the 1 player, the 2 player, and the 3 players that you can insure. Does that cost? Is that the same cost as well?
Oh yeah, the packages. You get a discount if you buy a package.
Okay, so you get a discount. Okay.
Well, you don't get a discount if you buy a package of 3. What we've done is we created 3 different coverage options. One is if you only want to insure 1 player, so you have to miss 9 out of 16 games. Then what we did was we offered a 2-player combination, so they have to miss 14 games out of 32.
Okay.
So you may pick a guy he was one of your top picks, but then you may take one of your 3rd-tier guys, your 3rd, 4th round guys, throw them in the mix because there's a better chance that they may get injured. Donovan McNabb, you may not have taken him in the first 3 rounds, but he's lingering around there, 6th, 7th round. You'll pick him up, and then you say, you know what, I'm going to I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insure him because, he's got a better likelihood of getting injured than maybe an Adrian Peterson or, a Peyton Manning.
Sure.
And then there's a 3-player, which is, along the same, it's the same exact idea, but now you put 3 players in the mix.
So what are you finding now? Are the 1-player packages more popular than the 3-player packages, or do you get a variety of interest in all the packages, or?
We're getting quite a bit of variety. We see a lot of the 1-player. The 1-player that,
first round.
Guys seem to think that could make or break their season. And, we're not seeing a ton of 3-player. But we are, there's a lot of 1 and a lot of 2-player coverage options out there.
Yeah, and this is a new product to a lot of the players out there, so it's something that they're still becoming familiar with and are going to get more comfortable with and eventually a lot more interested in investing in to protect their large investment. Because I was watching a guy interviewed on a fantasy show not too long ago, and I think the guy said he spends something where like $17,000 a year playing high-stakes fantasy leagues.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you like the same guys in all those leagues, chances are you're going to have a lot of the top tier players on those teams. So if he goes down, say you draft a guy like Frank Gore onto 4 of your teams, and you're spending $10,000 on fantasy, I mean, that insurance would be a great product to buy for that guy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And for me, one of the biggest realities to this is, after playing fantasy for so many years, getting into the business side of it, you really realize that it's more than just, a bunch of guys getting together, drinking beers, and, making up a draft board. I mean, there's a lot of guys out here who do this. Some of them do it for a living. I mean, there's guys out there that play, and, I know a gentleman that I met who spends $25,000 for his league.
Wow.
So, it's big money. It's not, there's a lot of the $50, $100 leagues, but then there's, just the same, there's, a lot of $25 and $15 and $10,000 leagues as well.
So is there any policy limits that you have in place for we write a $25,000 policy for a player?
Yeah, we will. What we did was, for the sake of the program and, getting this off the ground and getting it recognized, we limit your online purchasing to $1,500 for your league fee, and then you can add up to $200 in your transaction fees and also your incidental. So you can insure a total of $1,900 online. And, if you're serious enough and you want to insure 5, 10, 15, 25,000, you can contact us and, we'll underwrite it.
There you have it. It's kind of like adding a rider to your homeowner's insurance policy there, Rob.
Absolutely.
For all these players. So can you tell us about who some of the most popular players are to insure? Or is that something you gotta keep
right
close
now
to?
we're seeing a lot of, the top 5 guys. Chris Johnson, Adrian Peterson, Maurice Jones-Drew has popped up a lot lately. Ray Rice, obviously he's injured. We had some policies taken out on him early. And then it starts to spread out. What's interesting about it is you get these preseason rankings, and everybody's got their analysis on who the best players are, but, every league is different. They score it differently. They weight certain, certain categories more than others. So you'll see a lot of, quarterback-heavy leagues, and guys will come in and, they're buying up policies on, the top quarterbacks. And then the same goes for running backs and the wide receivers.
So they're spread pretty well around there, and I guess you'd expect to see that kind of thing because quarterbacks are obviously the most injury-prone, and your rates apply across the board to the percentages, and maybe as you get more experiences within your pools, maybe that will change. But for now, that seems like a very fair way of buying some insurance. So then does the insured, the named insured, does it end up getting a policy mailed to them, or is it just all done electronically, or?
Yeah, what they do is
work?
they purchase it online, and then we had it set up through our database to automatically produce certificates of insurance, and I'll be happy to send you one as a sample, just so you guys could take a look at it and do what you want with. But yeah, we send out a certificate of insurance. It describes, it gives your information, and then it gives you the named insured, the player, the amount you insured, and the premium that it costs.